I used to live in a small town called Crestville, a quiet place nestled in the foothills of the California mountains. After moving out of my parents' house, I rented a modest apartment in a two-family home owned by an older couple. My new place was bare, so I spent a lot of time browsing Craigslist for cheap furniture, hoping to score something nice without breaking the bank. After days of searching for a decent couch and a TV stand, I stumbled upon an ad that seemed too good to be true. The ad was titled in all capitals, "Giving away Maple Wood TV Standees, mint condition." Naturally, it caught my eye. I clicked on it immediately, my heart racing with excitement. The first thing I checked was the posting date. It had gone up just a few hours earlier. This was a good sign. There was even a picture of the stand, and it looked immaculate. The description explained that the owner's boyfriend was leaving for the military and didn't have room to store all of his furniture, so they were giving some of it away. She mentioned that she was also moving back in with her parents and needed to get rid of everything quickly. A phone number was included with the ad, asking interested parties to call or text. I quickly shot a text to the number, expressing my interest. The first thing I noticed was the green text bubble, which meant the person didn't have an iPhone. This usually meant responses would take longer, and I wouldn't be able to see if they were typing, which always annoyed me. But to my surprise, the person got back to me almost instantly. She introduced herself as Sarah and said I could come by that evening around 9 o'clock when she'd be home from work. Without hesitation, I responded, "Sure, I'll be there." She sent me her address, and I thanked her. After that, there was radio silence. By the time 8:30 rolled around, I started feeling uneasy about the whole thing. I had texted Sarah earlier to confirm, but she hadn't responded. The silence was starting to get to me. At 8:30, I decided to give her a call. The phone rang 5 times before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message, but a few seconds after the call ended, she texted me back. "You can come now," she wrote. I plugged the address into my GPS, got in my car, and set off. It was a short drive, about 15 minutes. When I arrived, the house was dark, with only a dim porch light on. It was an older 2-story house that had clearly seen better days. I knocked on the door as instructed, making sure not to ring the doorbell. I gave 3 quick knocks, but was met with silence. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, I tried calling her again. The call didn't go through, but right after, I got another text from her. "Just let yourself in." I stared at my phone, reading and rereading the text multiple times. Something about this didn't feel right. I tried again, my voice barely above a whisper. This time her voice answered, "Just come inside," but it was clear now. This wasn't a woman's voice at all. It was a man's voice, poorly disguised, trying to sound feminine. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had walked right into a trap. My mind raced, searching for an excuse to get out of there. "I forgot something in my car," I stammered, already backing away from the doorway. But before I could turn around, the door suddenly swung open with a loud bang. My heart leaped into my throat, but I didn't wait to see who was behind it. I was already halfway down the stairs before I heard the deep, menacing voice bellow from behind me, "Get back here." I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. I flew down the stairs, my heart pounding in my ears, and practically threw myself through the front door. I slammed it shut behind me and sprinted to my car, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. I peeled out of the driveway, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. I drove down the street, my mind racing with what could have happened if I had stayed. When I finally got home, I blocked Sarah's number and immediately went online to report the Craigslist ad. But it was already gone, removed as if it had never existed. I sat there in the darkness of my living room, replaying the events in my mind, unable to shake the image of that empty room and the voice that wasn't hers. What if I hadn't listened to my instincts? What if I hadn't run when I did? The thought sends a shiver down my spine even now. I learned that night that when something feels wrong, it probably is, and I would never take another Craigslist ad at face value again. Back in 2011, I was looking to sell my old bicycle. It was in decent condition, not a piece of junk by any means, so I figured I could get a couple $100 for it. I wasn't familiar with selling things online, so I asked my son to help me set up an ad on Craigslist. He did most of the work, taking pictures, writing the description, and posting it for me. He even listed my phone number so interested buyers could contact me directly. For a few days, there were no bites. I was starting to get impatient, wondering if I had priced it too high. But then, late one evening, I finally got a text from someone. The guy introduced himself as Matt and said he was interested in the bike. He wanted to come by and pick it up as soon as possible. I was eager to get the bike off my hands, so I told him he could come over right away. I gave him my address, and he said he'd be there in about half an hour. I didn't think much of it at the time, just happy that someone was finally interested. My family wasn't home that night. I think my wife and younger son had gone out shopping, and my older son was out with friends, so I was alone in the house. It was already dark out when I heard a car pull up in front of the house. I looked out the window and saw 3 men getting out of the car. Immediately, I felt a twinge of unease. Why would someone bring 2 other people just to buy a bicycle? It didn't make sense, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe they were just friends or roommates. One of the men rang the doorbell, and I could see from the window that they had already spotted me, so I couldn't just ignore them. I'd opened the door, and the man standing in front of the others reached out to shake my hand. He introduced himself as Matt. He was a big guy, built like a linebacker, with a thick beard and a deep voice. His 2 friends stood behind him, silent and expressionless. They didn't seem like the friendly type. As I started to say, "Let's go around back," Matt suddenly pushed past me, stepping into the house uninvited. "Which way to the bike?" he asked, his tone more commanding than curious. His 2 friends followed him inside, and before I knew it, all 3 of them were in my living room. The idea of keeping them out of the house had completely slipped away, and I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I hurried in front of them, leading them to the back door that opened into the yard where the bike was stored. Matt and one of his friends followed me outside, while the 3rd man, a wiry guy with shifty eyes, asked if he could use the bathroom. I hesitated, my mind racing. Should I let this stranger wander around my house alone? But as I glanced back at Matt and his friend, who were both staring at me expectantly, I felt cornered. I reluctantly gave the man directions to the bathroom, watching as he disappeared into the hallway. Outside, I led Matt and his friend to the shed where the bike was stored. As I unlocked the door and wheeled the bike out, Matt began scrutinizing it with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. He pointed out every little imperfection, the slightly bent spokes, the scuff marks on the reflector, things that no one would normally care about. All the while, my mind kept drifting back to the man inside my house. He had been in the bathroom for almost 10 minutes now, far longer than necessary. Something wasn't right. "I'll be right back," I told them, making an excuse to check on something inside. I rushed back into the house, my heart pounding in my chest. I checked the bathroom on the first floor. It was empty. I ran upstairs to check the second bathroom, but it was empty too. Panic set in as I realized the man was nowhere to be found. Then I heard voices coming from the living room downstairs, followed by the sound of footsteps heading up the stairs. My heart raced as I realized they were coming for me. "Hey, we just want to talk to you," Matt called out, his voice eerily calm. "You can relax." I didn't believe him for a second. I quickly slipped into the upstairs bathroom and locked the door, keeping the lights off. My hands shook as I dialed 911, whispering as quietly as I could to the operator, "Please send the police right away. I think they're going to kill me." The operator tried to keep me calm, asking for details while reassuring me that help was on the way. I could hear footsteps just outside the bathroom door, followed by someone trying the doorknob. When they found it locked, one of them muttered, "He's in here." Fear gripped me like a vice. I told the operator that they had found me, and she urged me to stay put until the police arrived. For a moment, there was silence, and then the door shook violently as someone began kicking it in. The door frame creaked and groaned under the force of the blows, and I knew it wouldn't hold much longer. "The cops are almost here," I screamed, hoping to scare them off. The kicking stopped, and I heard hurried whispers, followed by the sound of them stomping down the stairs. A few seconds later, the front door slammed shut, and I heard their car speed off. I stayed in the bathroom, my back pressed against the door, until the police arrived. When I finally stepped out, I found my house ransacked. My wallet was gone, along with a couple of watches, my iPad, and of course, the bike. The police told me I was lucky to be alive. Given that they had tried to break into the bathroom, they likely intended to harm me once they found me. The thought still sends chills down my spine. That was the first and only time I ever used Craigslist, and it's an experience I won't soon forget. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I was browsing Craigslist, searching for a good deal on a used laptop. I didn't have much money to spare, so I was hoping to find something cheap but decent. After scrolling through a sea of overpriced junk, I finally stumbled upon a listing that seemed perfect. A Dell touchscreen laptop for only $250. The photos made it look like it was in great shape, with just a few minor cosmetic imperfections. I quickly texted the owner, who introduced himself as Dave. He seemed friendly enough and told me I could come pick it up that same night. He even offered to meet me halfway since I lived in the countryside, about 10 miles from his place. It was a 20-minute drive, but I figured it was worth it for a good deal. We agreed to meet in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven at 10 p.m. I arrived right on time, but after a few minutes of waiting, there was still no sign of Dave. Just as I was about to call him, my phone buzzed. It was him calling. "Hey Dave, where are you?" I asked, skipping the formalities. There was a lot of background noise on his end, like he was driving. There was a pause before he answered. "Sorry, ma'am, my car's acting up. It's making some weird noises, so I pulled over on the side of the road. I don't want to go too far from home. Can you come meet me here?" His voice sounded calm, but there was something about his tone that made me uneasy. Still, I didn't want to be rude. He sent me his location, and I saw that he was parked on a side street not too far from where I was. But out here, side street didn't mean what it usually does. These roads were pitch black, surrounded by fields and forests, with no streetlights or houses in sight. I hesitated, the stories of Craigslist deals gone wrong flashing through my mind. But against my better judgment, I decided to go. After all, it was just a laptop, right? As I drove down the narrow winding road, I kept telling myself that I was being paranoid. But as I neared the location, my apprehension grew. The road was completely dark, with only my headlights cutting through the inky blackness. Finally, I saw the faint reflection of taillights up ahead, parked on the side of the road next to a large cornfield. I pulled up behind the car, but something felt off. There were no lights on in his car, not even the glow from a phone screen. It was as if the car was just sitting there, lifeless. I turned off my headlights for a second, and the darkness swallowed everything. My heart began to race, and I quickly turned the lights back on. I called Dave again, and he picked up on the first ring. "Yeah, I'm here," he said. "I had to run into the crops to take a quick piss. Just get into my car, and I'll be back in a second to show you the laptop." He hung up before I could respond. The unease that had been simmering in my gut boiled over into full-blown fear. This was too weird. Everything about this situation screamed that something was wrong. But I couldn't just leave. What if I was overreacting? I stepped out of my car, keeping the engine running, and stood behind the door, ready to jump back in at a moment's notice. I scanned the cornfield, trying to see any sign of movement, but it was too dark. The only sound was the rustling of the corn stalks in the breeze. 2 minutes passed, then 3. There was no way he was taking this long just to relieve himself. The fear gnawing at my insides was becoming unbearable. I decided to give him another 30 seconds, and then I was out of there. Just as I was about to get back in the car, I heard it, a faint rustling sound coming from the cornfield. I whipped my head around, eyes straining to see anything in the darkness. "Dave," I called out, my voice trembling. The rustling stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. Then I heard it, a soft crunch of leaves behind me. I spun around and saw a figure creeping up behind my car. My worst fear had come true. I didn't wait to see who it was. I jumped into my car, slammed the door shut, and floored the gas pedal. The tires squealed as I sped away, not caring where I was going as long as it was away from there. My heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure chasing after me, but there was nothing. just darkness. I didn't stop until I was miles away, in the safety of a well-lit gas station. I pulled over, my hands shaking as I tried to process what had just happened. If I hadn't kept the car running, if I hadn't been paying attention, I might not have made it out of there. It was a sobering reminder that these horror stories we hear about aren't just urban legends. They can happen to anyone, even when you least expect it. I didn't tell many people about what happened that night, but it's a story that will stay with me for the rest of my life. If you've made it this far, you're 100% a horror fanatic and we approve. If you love our campfire-themed horror storytelling experience, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads.